G'day guys, welcome back to another video. It is prelim final week, so it's only fair that we do a preview of the two big games coming up on the back of our successful tipping last week of GWS and Carlton, who had some amazing wins in their respective games, with the Blues in an absolute nail-biter against the D's, winning by 2 points, and the Giants getting over the Power by 23 points pretty comfortably in the end, it must be said. So all right, so taking a look at the Pies versus the Giants first on Friday night, massive game. I think it's already sold out, so there's going to be minimum 90,000 there again, which is a phenomenal effort given our track record in the finals already. The first point I want to make, it's an interesting one, is the break between finals starting can sometimes be seen as a disadvantage for the teams who win their first final. So looking at Collingwood, they've now played one game in the last 28 days. So on one hand, they obviously get a lot of rest. It's obviously allowed them time to get Nick Dacos right to come back in, which is a huge plus for them. But on the flip side, arguments can be made that maybe teams do then have a slower start because they aren't match hardened. They've just been sort of a bit lighter on workload, in preparation for the prelim final, coming up against a team that's a bit more battle hardened, if you will, going into final. So keen to hear what everyone thinks in the comments below on that, whether the pre-final bye is beneficial or not, or would you rather see it scrapped? But that being said, Taylor Adams is going to be a big out for the Pies. Obviously injured his hamstring at training during the week, but with the inclusion of Nick Dacos, it somewhat offsets that, given the talent that Dacos is. Although what will be interesting is he's missed well over a month of football. It's going to be interesting to see how he reacclimatizes back into the thrust of a prelim final, where the pressure is so far greater than a regular home and away game. And you can do all the running and the drills in the world at training, but nothing's going to replicate the kind of pressure and intensity that they're going to have on Friday night. So that's going to be very interesting. And it will also be interesting to see how GWS handle Dacos coming back in. Will they send a hard tag to him? Because that's kind of in the past proven to ruffle his feathers a bit and throw him off his game. Or will they just let one of their players go head-to-head and whatever happens, happens? Personally, if I was the Giants, I would send someone to him and try and get inside his head a little bit, because he can be an outrageously damaging player. So I'd like to try and stop that. For the Giants, though, Big Briggs has been cleared to play as well. Their ruckman, who has been sensational this year, almost as a lone wolf, really. And he's taken down some absolute giants throughout the home and away season and in finals. And he's got another big job ahead of him this week against Big Cox and Darcy Cameron. Obviously had that shoulder concern against the Power, but he has been declared fit to play, although I suspect he'll be jabbed up beforehand. So he might be playing in a little bit of pain. And again, similar to the Dacos situation, I dare say the Pies players are going to test that shoulder out pretty early on to see how he's tracking. But yeah, he is a huge factor in the game. Taking a look now at who I think are some of the key plays for each of the respective teams. So first up for the Pies, we've got Brody Myercheck, who, in my opinion, is one of the more underrated forwards in the comp. He's got great athletic ability, good goal sense, and he just creates a lot of problems for opposition. He's a very hard matchup. So he's one who can start to get dangerous up forward, especially with McStay down there, Elliott doing their thing. Brody Myercheck, for me, is the one who may be able to get off the leash. Although, looking at the Giants' backline, it must be said that the back four for the Giants have been pretty good so far. I think in the final series to date, David King mentioned today that they've had 27 1v1s, and they're yet to lose one, and that's between Himmelberg, Buckley, Taylor, and Iden. So that's a pretty incredible stat when you think about it. So that's something that the Pies are going to have to work on, and Myercheck, with his athletic ability and his jumping aerial ability, could be one to maybe break that trend. So he's one for me that I'll be looking out for to have a big game. For the Pies as well, Isaac Quaynor, I think personally is going to get the job on Toby Green. I know there's a lot of arguments that maybe Maynard might get the job on Green. Quaynor's got the speed, he's got the smart, he's good defensively, and he can hurt offensively as well, which I think is something you need to do to Toby Green. So I think Quaynor and his ability to shut down Toby Green is going to be a really big moment for the Pies in this game, and how they, increase their chances of winning, because Green is on fire at the moment. He set the scene really early for the Giants against Port, and I expect him to do the same thing again against the Pies. Flicking over to the Giants now, I mentioned before, but big Kieran Briggs, he's been one of the best ruckmen all year, hands down. He's obviously got that shoulder injury, as we mentioned, but his ability to just get to every single contest, he bashes and crashes. He's actually got reasonable goal sense, and he's helping give midfielders first use as well. And more importantly, the ones he isn't winning, he's at least halving a lot of them. So he's giving their mids, who are quite good, an even greater chance. So I think his game is going to get the Giants a long way into getting over the line. Hopefully, shoulder pulls up as well as what the club think it will. Jay Riccardi's the other player for the Giants that I think needs to have a really big game in order for the Giants to be any chance of winning. I think his game against Port last week wasn't his best by any stretch. I think he kicked one goal, but just wasn't really impacting the contest as much as he should have. I know Jesse Hogan played a really good game and probably took brunt of the workload along with Toby Green. But against the Pies, we've got a pretty strong defensive outfit. I think we need to see a greater output, should I say, from Riccardi for the Giants to be a genuine chance. So he's probably going to have Murphy as an opponent for bulk of the day, but he might get Darcy Moore as well, depending on if him and Hogan swap over at various stages. But he's just got to try and get a bit more dangerous. He's a good shot for goal. He just needs to get to more contests and to present, and the Giants maybe need to use him more just to become a little bit less predictable. So I think to see him kick 2 or 3 or 4 goals might be a big ask, but that will go a long way into the Giants getting over the line. So they're the players I'm looking at there. In terms of my tip, I really do think the Giants have got a good show at winning this. It's a genuine 50-50 game because the form the Giants are coming in with is pretty good, and that long break does concern me a bit for the Pies. So it's going to be fascinating to see what happens at the start of the game, and it's almost like a free hit for GWS because no one really gave them any chance of being there. So I feel like a lot of pressure is on the Pies, and the Giants are heading into this ranked in the top 2 main indicators of form with what they do with the ball, what they do without the ball, clearances, and winning contested ball around the ground. Obviously, Tom Green's been a contested beast animal that's going to be tough to stop, but the Pies, to be fair to them, have got elite talent across all lines. So it's going to be a big battle. Obviously, the Pies are going to want a little bit of retribution from last time. I think the Pies should win, but I'm going to go the upset. I'm going to tip the Giants by 14 points. I just think they're just riding a massive wave of momentum currently, and it might be hard to stop them. Looking at the other match, we've got Brisbane Lions versus Carlton, which is at the Gabba, 5:15 p.m. on Saturday, which is a bit of an odd time, but I guess it is to allow Carlton time to fly back home the same night if they were to progress through to the grand final for, I suppose, a longer rest time. Again, Brisbane, I suppose the same question applies to the Lions as it did the Pies, playing one game in 28 days. Is that going to hinder them, or is it going to be giving them the best chance to be fully fresh and ready to go heading into this big clash? I think over the years we've seen it go one way or the other, so I don't think there's enough data to suggest it's going to be a certain way. But keen to hear what people are going to think about that in the comments. Today, although the last couple of days it's come through that Payne is in doubt, their defender with an ankle injury. They'll obviously give him as long as possible, I'm guessing till Thursday or Friday to pass his fitness. If not, Gardner's probably going to be the one to come in to replace him. If that happens, the question is, does that upset the Lions' defensive unit? I know Harris Andrews come out today and said that it won't. He can play with it alongside anyone. Obviously, he's going to say that. But what I find interesting, and I've seen it a few times, is if teams get on top of Brisbane early and maybe get a few goals through Harris Andrews' direct opponent, he tends to drop his bundle a little bit and starts to get a bit yappy towards his teammates. And when he does that, the Lions' defense seem to crumble a little bit. So it's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out if that change occurs, because it can upset the apple cart slightly. But, they're obviously a very professional outfit and should be able to adjust accordingly. The midfield battle is going to be fascinating. You've got Lachie Neale, Berry, Dunkley, Zorko versus Cripps, Walsh, Chera. I feel like, though, and I obviously didn't read out 4 names for the Blues, I feel like they're one really A-grade mid away from being able to match the Lions. I just think the Lions might have the edge in the midfield battle in terms of depth. But quality-wise, all those names are going to be gun players on the night. So it's going to be a huge battle. And the ruck as well in particular. I know I mentioned last week, but Pittonet did a huge job against Gawn. He's going to have another big job on his hands against Oscar McInerney, who is an elite ruckman in his own right as well, and one of the giants of the game. So that's going to be a battle that's going to go a long way to deciding this one. Exactly like last week, Pitnet's not going to win a lot of the ruck contests against McInerney, but he has to at least halve them and give the Blues half a chance to rove off him if they're any sort of chance at all. Some big ins, obviously, for the Blues. We've got Harry Mackay and Jack Martin coming back in, which is absolutely massive for the team. I can't see any way that they don't come back in, so I'm assuming a little bit, but I think it's a safe assumption. Looking at the list, the likely outs is probably going to be Cunningham and Kennedy, but I think it's an absolute no-brainer to bring those two back into the side. Structurally, Harry straightens up Carlton quite a lot, and Jack Martin just adds another clever small forward who does trouble the scoreboard quite often. So very, very good inclusions there. We'll take a look at some of the players who I think are going to be important to the team's success. Charlie Curnow for the Blues. Now, I did go with him last week as well, and I felt like he let me down massively. It wasn't his best game against the D's whatsoever. May and Lever absolutely towed him up. Being one out against defenders like that is difficult, and this is why the return of Harry Mackay is going to help this bloke the most, because even if Harry only kicks one goal or doesn't kick any goals, he's going to draw a crowd, he's going to draw a defender, and that frees up Charlie to do his thing. So I'm looking at Charlie Curnow for a big rebound game. I think he's going to benefit greatly from Mackay coming back, and I'm expecting him to kick 3 or 4 and try and assert some dominance there. The other player for the Blues that I think is going to be vital is Sard. Not only for his creative run and dash from the back line setting up the Blues play, I'm looking at him to maybe try and do not too much of a defensive role on Charlie Cameron, but I think that he could be the one that makes Cameron try and chase him the other way because he's going to hurt him. So I don't know historically if Sard has matched up on Cameron all the time. If it was me, I wouldn't mind seeing it from a spectator point of view, but I think Cameron's got obviously electric speed and so does Sard, but Sard does then have the ability to run off him the other way and create goals and cause some issues there. So I think that would be the best way to use him, but obviously the Vossi knows best. Interesting stat on Michael Voss that I saw today. Apparently, he has never lost a final at the Gabba as a player or a coach. So that's one to think about for the Blues and the Lions fans. Moving over, though, to the Brisbane Lions. A player of importance for them. He needs to have a big one. Joe Danaher. And by extension, so does Eric Hipwood, to be honest. Both of them are very polarising players. When they are on, they are very, very good, and they make the Brisbane Lions a 6 to 7 goal better side when they're on song. The problem is there's been a lot of times they've played like a couple of Pelicans who've just got no idea what's going on and haven't really had any impact whatsoever. And it's just been very fortunate that the Lions are blessed to have a lot of medium and small forwards that are elite that can cover the workload while they might chip in with the occasional goal, but not dominate. So Joe Danaher needs to really step up in this game. And I think that a lot of the game does hedge on their two big forwards, to be honest. So looking to see how he goes under this type of pressure. And the other player, as I mentioned before, Harris Andrews, look, he's either going to have Curnow or Mackay. He might have both at various stages. But the way he goes about his game, and if he can keep it together, if Carlton get a run on of goals early, and some are through his opponent, the way he responds is going to dictate how the Lions go in this game, I feel. Because, like I said earlier, if he drops his bundle and starts pointing the finger, that's when things can go bad. Not just for the Lions, but if that happens to any team, it turns to shit. I've said it before, I still think there is a couple of mental demons within the Lions when it comes to finals football that they are yet to overcome. So this is a big game for them to prove a point because they've got the list. I'm still not sure they've got the mental ability to overcome these hurdles and push through and make a grand final. And that's probably going to play on their mind a little bit too. And for Carlton, similar to GWS, this is a free hit for them. No one expected them to be in this spot. They'll be going up there chock full of confidence. I know the Lions haven't lost at the Gabba this year, but like Richmond's record, our run at the MCG all those years ago, it has to end at some point, and maybe this is the week. So I don't know whether I'm gutsy enough to go for 2 upsets and call a GWS Carlton grand final, but the Lions really, if they're serious, they should win this. but it won't be comfortable. I think it'll be very, very close. I think the Lions might break their mental cursed hoodoo in the finals. I think they might get through, but it'll be by 7 or 8 points. I also wouldn't be overly shocked if Carlton won, though. I just think with the way upsets have happened, anything's possible. All right, so there we go, guys. There's the previews done for the prelim finals coming up this week. Hopefully we get 2 cracking games. Hopefully they're nice and close. I mean, I know that's not good if you're supporting the teams. It gives you a bit of a heart palpitation, but as a neutral, it's been a cracking final series so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing what is dished up on the weekend for us. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next video to preview the grand final.